Surprise! For an entire week of this show, I am going to be talking of the worst of list. The worst things that I have ever seen in my entire life. Actually, now that I think about it, it's not that good of a surprise. Hello everyone, and today, this happened. I want to introduce you all to someone. This is the rabbit that lives here down at the go-kart track. He's been here for quite a long time. I hope you can see him. Shadows might be too bad. But there he is, there's his head. We thought he was dead, but he came back after an entire year. So, this rabbit is quite a legend here. We all love him. You can get very close to him, not too close though, or he'll run away. Anyways, I'll see you all later. You all might notice that I am not on the couch today. I am on my sister's bed. And the reason for that is the couch is going under renovations. They're putting in some new technology, new updates, and we'll be back there soon, but for now, we're just going to do the show here. I should also mention that I am in the middle of a big sketch episode, so I hope you all don't mind if I just have a little bit of a slum. I'm really trying. It's been very hot. I've barely been surviving, but I really have something big planned for you all. And this is also really big too. We are doing a whole week of the worst of list. And the first thing we're going to do is books. We're going to talk about the top 5 worst books I have ever read. And these aren't necessarily the worst books ever written, just the ones that I have experienced. Let's go down to the very bottom of the shelf and see what novel is the worst.
Number 5. Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief. Rick Riordan.
Allow me to explain myself. I don't usually read bad books. You know, when I go to the library, my goal isn't to find the worst possible book I can get my hands on. I go into the library and I pick out books that are considered classics, you know, like Treasure Island, Around the World in 80 Days, the Sherlock Holmes short stories. So, when I picked up Percy Jackson, I was like, well, a lot of kids are liking this. Maybe I'll be able to get into it. And I just felt it was a huge ripoff of Harry Potter. That was my main problem with it, in fact. And I didn't even really like the characters. I felt the one character was too angsty. Like Harry Potter, they were a little smarter about how he could be a little angsty sometimes. They still made him out as a really good person. But this guy just felt angsty all of the time. And then there's a whole pin turning into a sword, and what they do to the Greek gods, putting them in the modern age, I don't like that sort of stuff. And they had that whole adventure where they go off after Camp Half-Blood on this, quest to find these things, and I don't want to go on a quest. I would have rather stayed there at Camp Half-Blood. I didn't really get much of a look at it. We were just introduced to it, and then they throw it away. But, yeah, of all the worst ofs on this list, Percy Jackson is one of the lesser ones. I would be willing to forgive it pretty quickly if I were to find a worse book. But as of right now, I have to be honest, I'm not into it, but it's definitely not one of the worst books ever made. It's just one of the worst books I've ever read.
Number 4. Lord of the Rings, by the Harvard Lampoon.
The National Lampoon guys, I don't know if you all know this, but they're kind of in control of comedy in Hollywood. And they don't really allow anyone else in. It's kind of an exclusive club. If you want to do comedy, you have to belong to National Lampoon. And the fact of the matter is, I think Hollywood believes that because they have these Harvard degrees and that they know so much about science and stuff, they can just move on into comedy and storytelling, and it's that easy. But those kind of people aren't always good in this business. It's kind of like stand-up. People think that, well, if they can do that, they can do acting and they can do comedy. And it's not always the case. And it really shows in this book that sometimes people with Harvard degrees aren't the best people to be trying their stuff in literature and film. These guys clearly did not know what they were doing. It was Douglas Kennedy and Henry Beard. And this story is supposed to be a parody of Lord of the Rings, but it's just too stupid, you know? It doesn't get funny enough. There's just not enough good jokes. And at the very beginning of the novel, they warn you not to read this story, that they just wanted to take your money. And I guess that could be a joke, but there's a lot of bad scenes in it. Frito Buggers goes to have mushrooms with benzidine, and there's this one scene where Stomp, who's the parody of Aragorn, kills this girl named Earache's boyfriend because he's jealous of him, and he wants her for himself. And it's just like such a selfish thing to do. There are a few jokes I will admit that I laughed at, the ball hog, and I admit, yeah, there's a few jokes along the way, but it's just a lot of just stupid stuff to get through. And maybe it's just because I'm such a big fan of Lord of the Rings that just seeing this parody that just fails it's too much for me, and it's why it's one of the worst books I've ever read.
Number 3. Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson.
I feel like this list is going to have a lot of books on it that there's going to be a lot of people that like them. My explanation is, again, I don't read a lot of bad books. But Who Moved My Cheese is considered a classic in the business circles. And for me, it's just one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my entire life. It's up there in the top 20 for sure of the worst things I've ever experienced. But, you know, there's a lot of complaints about this book, that the philosophy is all wrong, that it's just telling you how to just go with the flow, do what everyone else is doing, and just be just a part of the system. And there's others that say, like, how Sniff and Scurry are, like, human rats, workers, and that's how they're supposed to be viewed, and the business corporates are the ones that are controlling the experiment, and they're the only humans, and that's kind of a bad message. I guess, yeah, I have that problem, but my real problem with it is it's just a dumb story. There's just these humans, him and Haw, that are going through this maze with these two mice, and they're just looking for this cheese, and they'll just, like, sit there, and they'll just stay in this one place and starve themselves to death because they don't have the cheese, and then they'll go off looking for it, and it's such a dumb book. So stupid. I just hate it. I hate it so much. A lot of people like it. My dad and mom, they were like, when I was talking to them, I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever read. They were like, we love that book. And I was like, okay, it is a parable. I give them that. But even as a parable, it's just not very imaginative. It's boring. They're just in a maze. There's nothing fun about that. Oh, my mind was just like, oh, who would think of this, and who would even want to write this? The writing's not even that good. Yeah, it's just one of the worst novels I've ever read. Short stories, I guess you can call it. It's dumb beyond a point of dumbness that I never thought could be reached. You know, I never thought this level of dumbness could be reached by humankind. But they did it. Somehow. God help us.
Number 2. Stone Junction by Jim Dodge.
You all should know something about me. I am not a fan of the art house genre. And I do realize it's a good place for struggling directors and writers to tell their stories, to have a voice. But my problem with it is that a lot of the time, this is the way it goes down. It's some rich person's kid that is just high on shrooms, and they ask Daddy, Daddy, I want to make a movie, or I want to make a book. And Daddy's like, okay, here's money from my wallet. And then they get their little story, and everyone just like, well, it looks intelligent, so we might as well give it a good review. That's how it usually goes down. And I come from a very old school philosophy on storytelling. My goal when I sit down and tell a tale is to do a good job. You know, that's the main goal that I have. That's what I'm thinking about. And I can't stand all of this stupid stuff, like a baby hanging from a wall with an anvil, and then a sign down below that says 9/11. I don't understand what that is even all about. Or like just pooping in a jar and just leaving it out. and just watching the poop. The director's just like putting the camera on the poop for like 2 hours. I don't want to torture my audience. I will talk about some intelligent things, but I try to make it entertaining. I'm not going to torture you. I am better than that. I am better than filming poop in a jar for 2 hours. Stone Junction is poop in a jar for 2 hours. It is just this pretentious guy being like, I'm going to write a book and it's going to be really like art housey, and that makes it smart. And the character is just such a jerk. He's mean to women is one thing. He just throws them away when he gets them. And he goes on this like magical adventure and he finds a stone, and it's so art housey. He's nude on a beach and they're playing this game of cards, and the lessons he learns are so mean and cold. Every time he learns a lesson from this one guy who teaches him how to do disguises, another guy teaches him meditation, but all the lessons, all the people that are in control of them are just such buttholes, and I hate them. And I hate the main character. And I just do not like this story. And you can say what you want, that I just don't understand it, but it's not necessary. You need to have a sort of soul to a story. You need to have some goodness in it. And you need to have some rawness in it too. But it's just pretentiousness. That's what all this is. Stone Junction is just pretentious. That's all it has going for it. But it will be respected because of the fact it's pretentious, and everyone will just ignore all of the mistakes with it. Because that's the way it goes in this business.
Number 1. So bad of a book that I can't even say the title. I'm sorry, I refuse.
I feel a little bad about this last one because I can't tell you what the title is or what it's about because it is just so evil. I am instead going to do this. I'm going to make it a scavenger hunt. And I'm going to give you 2 clues. Clue number 1. This is one of Project Gutenberg's top 100 books. And that's the reason I found it. I was looking through the titles. I was reading all of the books on the list, in fact. And I came to this one, I was like, I don't know if I want to read this. This seems a little dark. But I was like, you know what? I'm an adult. I can probably handle it. And I couldn't. It's so many unspeakable things happen. And it's not a good story at all. There's no characters. Ridiculous things happen. The people are unrealistic. There's no plot. It's just randomness after randomness. And yeah, I don't even want you looking for this on second thought. Don't go looking for this. I'm going to give you the clues, but I hate to even do that. Clue number 2 is just that there's a beach scene. That's all I'm willing to say. So, I'm sorry about that last one. I know it's not really what you were expecting, but trust me. I've told you what the worst book of all time is. And that is all. I hope you enjoyed some of the worst books ever. It just gives me a bad feeling to even talk about these stories. Except Percy Jackson. That one was okay. I don't have a lot of bad books that I've read, so that's the only reason that one was included. So don't destroy me in the comic section. I'm okay with Percy Jackson. But the rest of these can go to hell.